Wir starten jetzt einfach mal. Ich freue mich sehr, dass wir heute so eine illustre Schau sind. Ich begrüße natürlich zuallerst Professor Simha Arom aus Paris. Also herzlich willkommen. Für diesen weiten Weg mit Flugzeug und in der Hitze. Ja, es ist wirklich eine sehr große Ehre, dass Sie hier sind, und ich würde jetzt das Wort auch weitergeben an denjenigen, der das eingefädelt hat. Das ist Fabian Levy von der HMT. Fabian, bitte auch noch mal.
Guten Tag an Bernd, dass alles hier organisiert hat, im Raum und so. Ich glaube, wir sollen nicht Simha Arom präsentieren, aber nur kurze Wort. Simha ist in 1930 geboren in Düsseldorf und sehr schnell weg von Deutschland nach Holland, Frankreich, Israel. Eine sehr lange Geschichte, kurz, zufällig, 1963. Er war Hornist in dem Orchester von Jerusalem und die Regierung hat ihn nach Zentralafrika geschickt, um eine Blaskapelle, militärische Blaskapelle zu gründen. Und da, 2 Wochen später, gab es ein Festival für traditionelle Musik oder so. Und dann hat er eine Musik gehört, der er selbst, obwohl er Profilmusiker war, Profilhornist war, nicht verstanden hat. Das war die Pygmäenmusik, die Aka-Pygmäenmusik. Und er hat versucht, das zu verstehen. Er ist 4 Jahre dort geblieben, in Bangui. Er hat sogar ein Museum gegründet, auch für traditionelle Kunst. Und dann eine Doktorarbeit gemacht und sein ganzes Leben gewidmet. Und danach war er Forscher in CNRS, das ist der Forschung Max-Planck-Institut in Frankreich, für Musikethnologie. Und Simha hat sehr viele neue Methoden in Musikethnologie erfinden. Nur ein letztes Wort für die Komponisten. Er ist nicht nur wichtig für die Musikethnologie, sondern auch als jemand, der sehr viele neue Begriffe für was ein Rhythmus ist, was ein Metrik ist. So, ich empfehle Ihnen wirklich sein Buch zu lesen, Polymetrie und Polyrhythmie in Zentralafrika. Das ist auf Deutsch, auf Englisch auch übersetzt. Und die Einführung schon spricht über neue Definitionen, was ein Metrum, Rhythmus und so weiter ist. So, das ist sehr wichtig. Dankeschön, Herr Simha.
Guten Nachmittag, guten Abend. Ich bin sehr glücklich und stolz, hier in Leipzig heute mit euch zu sprechen. Das konnte ich mich gar nicht vorstellen, dass so etwas einmal passiert, wenn ich Deutschland verlassen habe nach der Kristallnacht in 1938. Und mein Deutsch, das zwar meine Muttersprache ist, spreche ich ungefähr wie ein 8 Jahre alter Kind. Darum werde ich auch Englisch sprechen. Das ist nicht viel besser, aber trotzdem besser. Gut. Zeitstruktur in der afrikanischen Musik südlich der Sahara. Das ist, im Ganzen habe ich mehr als 50 Jahre jetzt afrikanische Musik. Ich sollte doch Englisch sprechen. Studiert. So, more than 50 years that I'm studying African music, and my luck was that I haven't read anything before I came to Africa. So I had absolutely no preconceived idea about what it should be. And all I know today is what I discovered in a very hard way of autodidactic work. So, therefore, and because of what I'm going to talk about time in music, I must beg you to leave aside for 3 hours now what you know about time in music. It's not easy. And to be attentive to what I will tell you, which will sometimes have a small traumatism maybe. But you may agree or not, it's not important. All what I would like that you be with me the whole time that I try to explain it. Because this adjustment, this revisiting of a lot of notions, it began with, for me, because I was a musician from a conservatoire, a Western conservatoire, and suddenly I found myself in a situation where it didn't work. I'm not in the same world, so I had to discover how the other world is, and while discovering it, I discovered that it's not so far away from ours, but not today, in the Middle Ages and at the beginning of the Renaissance. So you maybe will be surprised, and please stay with me. And another thing I want to ask you, if someone doesn't understand something I say, immediately please raise your hand. There's no value that I go on if you cannot understand. Right? That's a pact between us for today. Voilà. The things I will speak about are valuable from the south of the Sahara until the north of South Africa. That means most of the continent. That is just a country in which I worked, in which I stayed for 4 years at the beginning. And I worked with musicians, not only pygmies, and you will hear other music than pygmy music, which is very interesting. And the principles I discovered about time and other things in music are valuable in most of this part of Africa, south of the Sahara, until the north of South Africa, and sometimes even in South Africa. So it has some general value. Why can I say it? Because everything I heard since 50 years and everything my own pupils bring back from material that they collected in the field, in Gabon, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in Mali, and other Congo, and so on, nothing can against those principles. The most of my demonstration on time will be on what you see here, a man with a little whistle, this whistle makes a single tone. And what he does is interesting, that he is singing a very simple song, apparently very simple song, and regularly alternating his voice with this whistle. Let's listen to it. And you can ask yourself, while listening, how it is organized from the principle of time. You hear the difference of timbre between the voice and the whistle, which is a little bit. And so on. Well, what you hear is that we are in a cyclic music. Cyclic music. Most of African music is cyclic, what means that after a period of time, the same material, musical material comes back, but not always in the same way, with a lot of variations. So I try to transcribe it, and that's my first transcription. And I see I cannot organize it, I cannot understand how it works, if I don't take into consideration that we are in a music which can be presented in a paradigmatic form, that means in this form. That means what is resembling comes one about another, and so I can see that here we have 36 values, which are the minimal values, which I call in my own language, which I will use here, valeur opérationnelle minimale, minimal operational values. For instance, this is not operational. Yes, it's ornament. But all the others those are the minimal values of this piece, and we have 36. And we see that there are not a lot of things which are similar, but there are a lot of small things which are dissimilar. Now, what is the problem with such a piece? Did you orient yourself while listening to this piece? Easy, difficult? Did you mention something?
Herbie Hancock
Huh?
has exactly the same answers.
Attends, j'entends rien du tout, je sais pas comme ça.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a matter of Herbie Hancock did it in a piece which is called Hindu, which is the name of this piece, which you record from one of my records, thank you very much, but his transcription it was very bad. And he didn't understand what's happening. Why didn't he understand? Thank you. Because he didn't know how it is organized. What means how it's organized? You feel that this is measured music. That means we have somewhere a pulse, a regular pulsation, yeah, a beat. But where is this beat? And as long as you don't know where the beat is in African music, you cannot understand anything. So it is the key to African music, to African measuring time in music, is knowing where the beat is. As long as you don't know it, you cannot do it. And we make the experience in 2 minutes. So, when you have a piece of music which is of phrases of 36 minimal values, how many possibilities do you have to put a pulse of it? Seven. It could be binary, the grouping 4 values or 2 values, or it could be ternary by grouping 3 values. If I group it binary, I can begin here, 4, 4, 4, 4, and we'll have 9 makes 36. But it could begin here also. And I have always the same. It could begin here, and it could begin here. And nobody knows where to begin. The only who know where it should begin, where it fits, are the people of the culture who use this music. That means from a cognitive aspect, you can understand a music only if you know how the bearers, the traditional bearers of this music, for them, where is the pulsation which comes from this music. And what is the criteria to define this? That is that music and dance are mostly together. And if you look in a movie on African traditional music and dance, and you see the beginning, the movement of the feet is always regular, equidistant. And this movement corresponds to the pulsation of this piece. But all those people, they know where it has to be, so they don't need to clap to it. That's the reason it's so difficult. So I have here, if it is ternary, I said, je l'ai pas dit, je ne sais plus, you have 3 possibilities, that means you have 7 possibilities, and you don't know which one is a good one. It is a little bit like what you see here, this figure is called le cube de Necker, the Necker cube. Mr. Necker in the 19th century found out that there is an optic illusion. When you look at this, at a given moment, you will see this, and suddenly it will shift and you will see this, or this, you may see this before seeing this. And you never know which one is, some ambiguity. African music, one of the big principles is ambiguity. And since Fabien talked about the composer, with whom I had the pleasure and the honor to work, one of the things that fascinated Ligeti was precisely the ambiguity that is in this music. So, as long as we don't know where the beat is, we can know how the music is built. I go back to the first room. Yes. We listen to this again. Did you remark that we have no accents at all in this music? It is like plain chant, but measured. And that's a very important point. you have no strong beat in the music of Central Africa. I call Central Africa for all the regions I delimited, okay? Now, what I ask you to do is to listen again to the piece, and when you feel you have the beat, you clap your hands, and I will looking, see what happens, all right? Don't be shy. Courage. Nobody, just you.
And clap on this.
Okay. Nobody was right, and it shows the problem. You are here 40 or around 40 musicians, and nobody of you was able to find it. I wasn't able also at the beginning. And I say it's a basic problem of African music. Now, we listen to it. I wanted to transcribe this piece and I couldn't because I didn't know where the beat falls. I left it for 26 years and then I came back to the same encampment of pygmies and said, do you remember that I was here a long, long time ago? Yeah. Did you remember I recorded a piece, this piece, and they heard it. Can you clap to it? And I played it on a tape recorder and immediately two of them began tack, tack. And it took me 26 years to know how to transcribe it. Okay, and now, here we are. You see? Yeah, okay. That's it. That's a transcription. And you see, I began it here because I wanted to begin on beat, and here I couldn't, so I put it at the end. And now I have this paradigm of the piece, and I know that it is like it is, and why I know like it is, what it is, because you will hear my two pygmies in 96, 92, I don't remember exactly, clapping on it, and I recorded the clapping. It will come out from here, the song will come out from here, and then you will say, of course it couldn't be other than any other way. That's very difficult. Bon. Now, this small piece has some characteristics, and we shall see the next one, which is quite interesting, because all those characteristics give you a description of what African organization of time is. Here you have, what about avec ma flèche? You have 4 times unit of 12. You have and it begins. So we have 12 times 12 beats of 3 equal 36. Now we have patterns of 12 from a rhythmical point. If you can hear this pattern, and you say, how are they made? They are made, if I group it in 2 to make them, this 12, I have always a group of 5 and a group of 7, a group of 5 and a group of 7. But if I begin counting of another place, I will have a group of 5 and a group of 7, and a group of 5 and a group of 7, or a group of 7 and 5, which is the same. And all these three patterns have the same rhythm. And this rhythm is the following. look at it, it's 1, 2, 3. I say it in English. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's, if I begin it here, instead of here, pam, 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 without this small thing, okay, which is an ornament. Pam, 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 pam. And here, and I have small differences even in the melodic. This is A, this is B, that is C. I will have here La, Ré, Sol, Ré, Sol, Ré. La, Ré, Sol, Ré. La, Ré, Sol, Ré, Fa, Ré. Fa, Ré, Sol, Ré. They are not two equal. And it's very difficult, it's very subtle to hear the difference. Well, and all of them belong, have this, that's what you've seen. That is the matrix of this rhythmical figure, which is called in America and the United States and elsewhere, the African standard pattern, because you can find it all West Africa and almost everywhere. Now, I come to something totally else. When you hear this figure like this, you see that's a pattern. When you see this, here is a pattern. Here is how people realize this pattern. You see, it's not the same. Here you have this, thus. Here it's full, yata, 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 yata. Pam, 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 pam. And when you take an African, you played me just this, but in two different ways. You think, well, no, I played the same. I clap the same. What does it mean? Not that I do not make the difference between two acoustical different realizations, but it means that from a cultural point of view, and that's important when we are in ethnomusicology, what is the cultural, what are the cultural criteria when we talk about something? From a cultural point of view, all this list and all this list is the same. That means you can play this figure as you like. At the moment people listen here, pam, 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 be it with ta 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 ta, doesn't matter. It is the same. So you see here, if I put it in a circle, because we're in a cycle, 2, 2, 3, 2, pardon, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, no, that's another one. Excuse me, alors je vais là, non, et je vais en arrière, et je reviens là, et je n'ai pas, non, alors je continue. Okay, I come back to this. Well, I explained. When you have 12, and as I showed you, you can divide it into 5 and 7, but you can never divide it in 6 and 6. That means when you have 12, on one side you have 5, on the other 7. There's half minus 1, half plus 1. When you have a figure of 8, you will have on one side 3, on the other 5. Half minus 1, half plus 1. When you have 16, you will have 9 and 7. And when you have 24, you will have 11 and 13. The other numbers I don't use. But in all Africa, you may find these figures. What do they have in common? They have in common that they cannot fold them into two equal parts, no symmetry. And since I had the luck, and I was happy and proud to discover this, and I had to coin it, and I coined it rhythmic oddity. So here I show you some other possibilities. Alors, this one, alors je vais là, Voilà. Here what we have, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3. 2, 4, 7, 2, 4, 6, 9. 7 and 9, 16. 16 is not twice 2 times 8, but 7 plus 9. Half minus 1, half plus 1. And if you can represent it in another way, it's not important, the same. Now that is the negative. Here we have what? 3, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2. That's a figure which comes from the Akapi base. 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 1 to 2, 1 to 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 1 to 2, 1 to 2. When you hear the real tempo, begins to be a little complex to know what is going on, but because you have all say groups of 3 followed by groups of 2, but never the same number, and it goes very quick. And it's the same. You cannot divide it into 12 and 12, but only into 11 and 13. And here you are, that's the most simple. 2, 4, 7, 2, 3, 5. All right? Questions? No clear? Do you sleep or do you follow? We follow. Okay. Alors, now in this small, I come back to my small song. So this is the whole enunciation of it. The thought is 12 multiplied by 3. And suddenly, if we look, this is a whistle song with a circle on it. If you count, you will see from one circle to the next, you have always 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means here you have a metrical structure, which is in contradiction with a rhythmical structure. You have 3, again 4, which is even not an hemiola, I come back to it, but it's more complicated than an hemiola, which is 2 again 3. 3 again 4 in Western music. I know only one case, and this case was communicated to me by Ligeti. It was Cicogna, in the 16th century. But otherwise, maybe someone did it, nobody knows who. In Africa, you will find it more than once, and we will meet it again today. So you have, this is binary. You have 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, multiplied by 4 is 36, and 3 multiplied by 12, you have 36 also. And now, you have here the paradigm of the whole, and that's how it works. Now, that is, I finished here about this small song. There would be a lot to say more, but for today and for you, and let's take a rest and go on. What we know until now, what we can, let's make a small conclusion, temporary conclusion. In this piece, could you clap it now? Do you want to try?
Yes, of course.
Bien, good. Courageous. Alors, là c'est eux qui frappent, c'est pas la peine, c'est là. Go. It's easy with me. Voilà. Alors, why is it so difficult? Because there are no accents. Because there are no strong beats. And that's the first notion I ask you to forget for this afternoon. This is music without strong beat. Music without strong beat means music without measures. And all the metrical, all what you have in meter, there are 3 levels of meter. The most important is the pulsation, because the pulsation is a cornerstone of the whole structure, because you can divide it into 2 or 3, and you have seen the ambiguity you can create with this, but you have to multiply it to be able to determine what is a period, what is the length of the entity, of the musical entity. So we have the pulsation, which is divided into what I call relevant operational minimal values, and then you have a period, when you count the units of pulses to make a piece, or so on. That's all. If you have no strong beat, you have no measures, and you have no syncope. You have offbeat, beat, offbeat. And you have no measures. And therefore, Fabien, there is no polymeter in Africa. Because the whole meter you are is, which is even not here, it's under. It's an understatement. But people who are from a tribe or from an ethnic community, who know their patrimony, who know their dance and their music, they know exactly where it has to fall. I came back to different villages 2 years later, 3 years later, 10 years later, and I had these stereo recordings of multi-part recording, yes? And I close one channel and say, can you sing me this? And I let them hear one song and say, please clap to it. And I was the only who in the other ear had the clapping they gave me 10 years before, 5 years before. It is already the same, absolutely the same, never changes. That means it's inherent to the music, culturally inherent to the music. Those are notions which are basic. Without knowing this, you will be wrong. And therefore, comment il s'appelle, le jazzman qui a écrit cette chanson, Herbie Hancock completely didn't understand anything. There was a very famous man who has great merit. He was the first who made transcription of African rhythm. He made it with a machine he construct and so on. He was a reverend missionary, A.M. Jones, and he also he discovered it. It was before World War II, so he was a pioneer, and I have a lot of esteem for him. But with the meter, he was wrong, because every time he made an accent, he made a bar, a bar. And so he had 2/4, 3/16, 3/8, 6/4, and so on, which isn't absolutely don't correspond to the spirit of African music. So I'm astonished nobody asked me, so you mean there are no accents in African music? No, this question didn't come to your mind, but it came to mind to defend myself in front of you. There are a lot of accents, but they're all not on the strong beat, and they are irregularly dispersed in the song. That means they are mostly offbeat. So when you come to Africa, that's what happened to me. I tried to understand, I didn't understand, so I tried to orient myself, listening to accents, and what can I clap from one accent to another accent, but never, I had one accent, but I didn't get the second. It was somewhere in the nature. And then I began to think there is something fundamentally different from everything we know in West. So we have these three elements: minimal values, pulsations, pulses if you prefer, and period. So, and maybe you'll mark that I never talked about rhythm until now. Because what I try to do is to make a separation between meter and rhythm. Wait.
To my head came a question before you continue with the rhythm. Can I? May I? I have a question.
Yeah.
May I? That because you say that there is no polymetrics in African music since there is not this thing. But if you look at this piece, would you not interpret the beat from the legs, I mean the dance steps on 3, and the flute beat on 4 as a polymetrics?
No, you said polyrhythm. It is polyrhythm. In Africa there is a lot of polyrhythm. I come to it, but it's not polymeter. Because polymeter is not if you have a meter which is a regular accentuation of something, which organizes the rest. That means 3, 4.
Yeah, but that's my question, that the legs organize regularly only each third beat. This one, the flute organizes on each fourth.
Yes. Did you hear it
Yes?
during the song?
Yes?
Did you clap to it?
I heard when there was the clapping, I heard the flute and the beat. On the
Beat on what?
The beat from the clappers and the flute.
No. Okay, no, but before hearing the claps, did this the fact?
No, it did not.
That's the answer. That's the answer.
Yeah, because we didn't see the dance.
Because it's something else.
Mm.
The fact is a fact. The polymeter means that you have bars or mini structures which have a different organization according to a first time to a strong beat. There is no strong beat. There is a regular recurrence of against 3 voices, that's all. But
Yes.
the timbre is, and the dynamics is so equal that nobody of you, and even not me when I was at the beginning, had the idea to clap on the sound of the flute. Or if the flute would be a meter, it would be in some way marked by something. I'll come to that back, okay?
Okay.
Bon. Alors, voilà. Voilà. Now we'll listen to something. The sanza. You know what the sanza is? Bira, also called bira. It is, people call it African piano, which you have des lames, comment on dit.
Keys, metal keys.
You play it with the thumbs. And what you will hear is the model or the matrix of a song which is played on such an instrument. Only the left hand, because you play it with 2 hands, and you play it sometimes in polyrhythm, and it's difficult to know what each hand does. So I recorded the hands separately and then put on them the pulsation. So let's listen to it, and you tell me if you can clap to it. Can you clap to it? How many claps do you have?
I have 3 in the 2 beats.
How many duration do you have? if you see the metrical organization, okay, the same was the clapping by someone of this community. It's 6 against 8. 6 against 8, which means 3 against 4. Epitrit. So when you hear them play, you should pam, 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 pam. And that is the basis of polyrhythm in Africa, that you have 6 against 3 against 3, not as a hemiola in horizontal hemiola, like in Bernstein's exact. Comment ça s'appelle?
West Side Story.
West Side Story, para pa para pa pam pa. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's horizontal hemiola. In Africa, you have vertical hemiola. 2 against 3 this way, and 3 against 4, or 6 against 8 in this way. So what is rhythm against meter? Rhythm is a form, a temporal form. If you have no pattern, you have no form, you have no rhythm. But what do you have? If you do this, what do you have? You have a pulsation, and that's meter. But meter is a continuum, because it is not marked. Marked. To have rhythm. Well, now we come into another theme in which I have a personal view. I published about it since 35 years. Nobody said it's good, nobody said it's wrong. As a matter of fact, it doesn't interest anyone. That's not important. That's not important. It makes clear my mind and the mind of my students, or the mind of the people who would agree with this view, that there is a clear distinction between meter and rhythm, which you will not find in any dictionary of music, from the simplest to the most complex. At the end of any article about meter, you see also rhythm. At the end of an article of rhythm, you have see also meter. So that you don't know where ends the meter, where begins the rhythm. And I tried to make a clear distinction between them. Therefore, I had to make some destruction of what I learned at the Conservatoire de Paris. I'm sorry about it, but there was something which didn't go. So, meter is a continuum, something which goes on, which has no form. But if I make something like this, banal, minimum, this is rhythm, because you have a difference of what? Not of accents, but of timbre. So, to have rhythm, you need a mark. There are 3 types of mark. I give them separately, but mainly they are combined. The first is an agogic, dynamic accentuation. But when I have not this, I can have this. It makes units, very short, banal, stupid units, but it is a unit, it is a pattern. And the third is, which is quite rare, but in Africa you find it often, that you have no accents, as you have seen here, and the only possibility to differentiate, to determine musical figure is by the length of the values which are different. This is a pattern. Boom, boom. That's a pattern, and I can identify it. Everyone can identify that it begins here and here. So this is written. So this is not written. This is written. This is written. This is nothing. This is meter. It's like a spiegel. Well, it seems very simple. It is, and a few days ago, one of my students talked to me in private. They said, "You know why people do not understand your work?" I said, "Why? It's too simple." Pardon. I beg your pardon. It's too simple. Can I go on? Ah oui, alors attends, oh là là. Oui, one moment. Non, j'étais là. Well, attends, je crois que je suis là. Yes, as we have seen. So, let's come back to for a moment, to the rhythmic oddity. Here you have some examples, how it is done, because it's interesting when you are inquiring about something to see what is the procedure to get those strange figures. So the minimal is 8. And you have on one side 3, on the other 3 and 2. And now you add all the time a group of 3. This is my group of 3, 2, 3, 2, and I add a 2. So I have here 5 and here 7. Here I have my group of 7, and I add a 2, and I have 3, 5, 7, 9. And then when I take my 9, which I have here, look at, 3, 9, 9, 9, 6, 7, 9, and I add to it, celui-là n'est pas juste. No. I add to it one element of 2, and I have 11, and on the other I have 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Those are, and all those are, they are processing the same principle. Now let's go to another example of polyrhythm. If you see this, what is polyrhythm? If I try to give a definition, very short definition, it is the crossing of attacks of at least 2 different figures. And if this crossing is total, that means that there are no 2 attacks at the same time. That is the optimum of polyrhythm. No matter how many parts you have, it's a matter how dense is the crossing. Here, for instance, you see that between those are 3 drums from a tribe called Bandadapa. That's not very important. There are 2 interesting things, that you have a clap on 5, not on 4 and not on 3. It means the unit, the standard, time standard, has not to be noir, comment on dit noir? A quarter, has not to be a quarter, and has not to be dotted quarters, c'est ça, yes. So it is a huitième, an 8, and a dotted 8, which gives you 5. And you have pam pam, pam pam, pam pam, pam pam, pam pam, pam pam. That's what makes the first drum. The second drum is beginning here, and he is here, and this is only what remains of his beat here. So the only moment where those two play together, have an attack in common is here. And the third, he plays on 4 and not on 5. So he's together here and here, and not here and not here. But here he has an accent, and here has none. This drum, no, ça c'est pas le, pardon, this is not a drum, this is a grelot, jingle. The polyrhythm is in the two, which are playing on units, on metric units, clap, which contains 5 smaller parts. Okay, so it comes to accompany a song, which we'll hear very shortly, a ritual song, with the 3 drums and these jingles. There's some Spanish we let's say jingles. Okay, now let's hear what are the drum doing. That's a polyrhythm which is behind, which is under it. So first we hear what happens between the 2 drums. One is coming from here, the other from here. I don't know where comes the first. We'll see. See what's crossing? Let's start, listen to it again. This is cross rhythm. And they are, I think there is not even one common. Now, the drum 2 and 3 that's it. Let's say, well, and since we are in polyrhythm, I will give you before we make a small break, so to rest a little bit, to have pleasure without my discourse on it. 2 lenga. Lenga are slit drums from wood, long, and which side of the wood, of the drum, there is a split in the middle, and you have a different sound of. So, and they are played by 2 men. One makes an ostinato, some small variations, and the other one, the master drummer, begins with a phrase, drum phrase, and then he makes. He may improvise, because improvise, people talk about African music and often say, well, they improvise. What does it mean? They make something which has no structure, just what comes to their mind. Never. When in a group there is improvisation, it's mostly one single person who improvised, and all the other have matrices or models, or I call it patterns, which they have to play again and again with very small variation, sometimes a strict ostinato. But no, that's for the pleasure of hearing what is in Africa polyrhythmic. That's ostinato, the high, that is a solo. Das ist wirklich another example, and now I suggest you make a break, very short one. Let's say 10 minutes, no, so well, 10 minutes.
Yeah, great.
Just. Well, so we go on and have about polyrhythm. Here's an example of a polyrhythm between two parts of music for harp, of course, which is done by one single man, and he's also, by the way, singing on it something totally different. But when I talk about polyrhythm, I don't talk about the different melodies which are superposed, but only about rhythmic structure. I mean, pure rhythmic structure, percussion instruments, instruments who perform in themselves polyrhythm, which is the case with this harp. So if you look here, let's listen. Let's listen to it. You hear first the left hand, and after a while, the right hand comes in, so you can hear clearly what the left hand does. And then, since the right hand is much higher in the register, so you will be able to listen to both to them relatively independently. So you have three parts in it, A, B, C. And as we have seen in Hindu, in the piece at the beginning, and this music comes from a quite other tribe. The first came from the Babenzeli Pygmies. This comes from Baka, which are hunters in the forest, also hunters like the Pygmies, but they are not the same at all. And the topographic distribution between those two groups is about 600 kilometers difference, but the principle is always the same. That you have here, this is absolutely binary. You can see it. You have four double crochet.
Eight.
No,
16th of
16th of note. 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. And this pattern begins again, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, and again, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. Pam, 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 pim, pam, 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 pim, pam, pam. And it comes against what go in this hand. Now here you have this, which will be the same here, this will be the same here. This will be not the same here because here we have a fifth, which we don't have here. Then we have again the fifth here, which we don't have here. And in the third, we will have here a B instead of a G here and nothing about it. And here it will be the same as here and here. Here the same as here, but not as here. And here the same, different, only the upper voice of what we had here. So this is the subtleness which you have in African music, that you say, I hear always. And that was my first reaction when I heard the first day I was in Africa. It happened to be the Feast of Independence, and there was music all over the capital, Bangui. And I listened to different groups, and I said, but it's interesting, it's always the same. And after I went, no, it's never the same. So in balance between it's always the same, it's never the same. That's typical African music, it's ambiguity. And what we have in the right hand, okay, the same. On the two first pulses in each group of four, we have the same. And here we have an A at the same position. Here we have a G. Here we have so this is the same. This is the same. G, G, voilà. And this is like the first. So this is like the first, and this is totally different. And everything plays on those small differences. But the polyrhythm, which is the main thing here, is that one voice is phrase. One part is ting tang tam ting ta ting tam ting ta ting tam ting ting tam ting tam ting ta ting ta tam ting pam pim pam 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 pim pam pam pam. And the only thing which makes them unite them is the pulsation.
May I ask probably a dumb question? Is there any example of slower music? Probably not, because you cannot. Slower music. All these examples are really fast, and you cannot. Probably you don't perceive the pulse with the slower pulse.
There is no slow music. In traditional African music, there is no slow music. And when you have what you call slow music, there are some phenomena, but they aren't called music. And what are they? These are laments when someone dies, or shouting in a melodic way by the pygmies when they are on hand, or some situations like that. And why doesn't they call it music? Because it is not measured. So, what is the equivalent for us music in Africa is called song, even if it is totally instrumental music. But we say, this is a song, you know the piece. And any instrumental music, purely instrumental music, which are very few who listen to some, and derives from a song, from a vocal song, always. So, and if not, then people are quite, and you will never be able to say on African traditional music that it is sad because that it is slow, and it is slow because it's sad, or it's sad because it's slow. There is no slow music. Tempo is no. La salsa,
Le lebaï.
les quoi?
Les berceuses.
Ah, les berceuses, non.
Le lebaï and chant pensé.
The chant, and lullaby is not slow. It's in the same tempo as this. I don't remember any time really slow. No. Never thought about it, but recently it took back. To my knowledge, no. La musique urbaine, urban music maybe, but urban music is not traditional music. No. Alors, here is that's just to give you an example of how music is organized in the patterns. This comes from Ivory Coast, not from the where I worked. And you see there are 3 drums, and the 4th drum who makes improvisation, you cannot see it, on a pattern which is on 8 beats, 8 pulsations, 4 and 4. And this drum, the pulsation with the minimal values, 24 minimal values and 8 pulsations. And there's a master drummer who makes improvisation on this. But what maintains the piece is this. I will not give you an example here, just to show you that this drum, if you go from one beat to another, from here to here, you will have 7. If you go from here to here, you will have 13. It means here you have 5 and 6, which is 11, and here you have 13. Does it remind you the rule of half minus 1, half plus 1? And you have it here, but on another number, 7, 5 and 7, 5 and 7, 5 and 7, which is 12, which again rhythmic oddity, which is quite distributed, dispatched in African music, in African poetry. Well, now, so we had anything about rhythm, we talked about meter, we talked about rhythm, and we talked about rhythmic figures. But there is one phenomenon in rhythm which did not fit all what I was talking to you, and it is a rhythmical form which is very known in Europe, in Central Europe, or East Europe, and in Turkey, and it's called aksak. Aksak is a Turkish word which means lime. So, why is it called lime? Because it is done on what musicologists call irregular, but what doesn't mean anything. It is called on groups of notes which include groups of 3 and 2, which are diversified in different ways. As a matter of fact, I did some study of this because I wanted to complete what I've done on Africa. In Africa, I didn't find this time this kind of rhythm. People of mine found it and brought it back, so it exists. And I once met it in Congo. It was a lady singing a lullaby to her child, and she was clapping on beating the baby, which was around me. One, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, which gives 9. And 9 is a very interesting thing because you can divide it into 3 times 3. 1, you have 9. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and you have 9. So 1 is a regular 9, 8. If I write it in a Western measure, but if I think it in oral music as an aksak, as a form, it is a group of 3, 3 group of 2. But I consider true aksak only combinations of this group of 3 and 2 for a total group of a prime number. Prime number is 5, 7, 8, 17, 19. And then, huh?
11.
Comment?
11.
Okay. So what can you do with them? You can do a lot of them. And what happens, why do I talk about something that is very few, that you find very few in Africa, for a simple reason, that when you want to theorize something, you shouldn't let left on the side something which doesn't fit you, or what you don't please, you don't be happy with. So, until now I made a big distinction between meter and rhythm, and when I came to Aksak, it is the only case in which meter and rhythm are merged. Why? Because if you ask someone, if you clap an Aksak of the most simple, which is 5, what will you do? You will do exact. When I ask you to clap the meter of the same Aksak, what will you do?
Meter.
Of the same Aksak? No.
No?
Yes, but then you take as a basis not a pulsation that you can divide, but you take the minimal value. You make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See what I mean? You have 5 minimal values. They are grouped to 2 and 3. And the normal reaction of someone who claps them is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. That's what you did. But nobody, there's one more point I didn't make, but I should have made. Aksak is always fast. Because when it is to be lame, you must ressentir, you must ressentir, feel it, you must. If I get 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, you feel one is longer, one is shorter. And when you take the slower part of the Pathetic Symphony of Tchaikovsky, what do you have? You know, it's all of you, huh? It's 5, but it's not an Aksak. Because of the tempo. Because when you listen to it, and it doesn't come to your mind that it is line. But if I make para para ta tira ti ta ta, then I have an Aksak. So that's the only case in which tempo is a structural feature of a kind of music. Intéressant. So, but when now if I ask somebody to clap me the rhythm of a meter of 7, yeah, well, no,
At the meter?
see, no, the rhythm of 7, accent of 7.
2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3,
7, 7, 7.
2, 2, 3. Am I wrong?
2, 2, 3.
No, look what 7 is 2, 2, 3. No, you go too fast. You make 6 instead of 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. And what is the meter of 7?
What is the meter? Where the meter is?
The meter is a 7.
The meter is, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
the meter is the same as the rhythm. If asked to spontaneously, okay, someone, not in a lecture, but in a private talk, what you will know, that was a rhythm. Now give me the meter.
9, 8.
Because if you want to take
It's
the
impossible to-
minimal value as a standard, you come back to the same structure.
Yes, yes, of course.
That means,
Of course, only Balkan there are lots of combinations.
okay, no Balkan will do this.
Yes,
Never.
we do
Never.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
Okay, that's all. But,
It's
You like to
minimum,
show
minimum
it.
value.
okay,
So probably the beat can be also either on one, on the whole thing, or on each beat, right?
no, I don't understand.
On this rhythm of 7, probably the beat can be only on the first one or on each. Is that what you mean?
There
On
is
the
no
first one
regular
also,
beat.
no?
There cannot be a regular beat if you have 7.
No, I think what he means,
I
what
think-
you means is that the minimal pulse is
identical.
like you don't first 1, 2, you don't do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You do
Yes,
one,
that the
no,
minimal
no,
pulse is the meter.
Exactly.
And the second possibility would be on the first one only. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Then you have 5. Ah, you have something.
1, 2, 3, 1. That's what I'm saying, it can be like in the
But
prime number only
you
on
will
one.
have a
And the
Or
full.
in any case, something will happen on the other. On pam 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 pam. Something will happen in Balkan. Look at the feet of the dancers as they move at this moment. Am I right?
Yes, of course. They have no other choice.
It's- all what I tell you is logic. I'm not sure I may convince you it is, but from my experience, I know it is, and I try to share it with other people.
Yeah, I'm not doubting it. My question was just that probably the first one can be also perceived as a meter, especially if it's fast like that. Ta 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 on this 5, which were very fast on the drums. So
But if you-
it's just a mathematical thing.
No. Come back to the cultural, to the cognitive aspect. Ask a Balkanese to beat in Aksak. The lady said it, he will never do this. We do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Ask an African to beat what he did. Quel est l'exemple qu'il m'a donné là? Je commence à
7, 8.
Oui, mais
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1.
oui.
One.
He never beat. If you ask the African to
He will beat every beat.
to what we hear before, pam 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 pam. His beat is on 5/16, and not on 4, and not on 6,
Yes,
and
yes.
not on 4. So
I think you will-
my
That's what I was meaning on the
I think
beginning.
you're
Dun, 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 dun.
Wait,
Yes, yes.
so
I understand.
when I study the music of other people who are not of my culture, I have to be truthful to the way they perceive it and they conceive it. If not, I am a traitor. So, I accept their criteria. I have no choice. It's their music. Oui, non, mais je veux qu'ils comprennent bien la démarche. Voilà. Alors, what comes next? Here you have just for your entertainment, a Greek small popular dance on 5, on an axis of 5, with Taksim, which is the introduction, unmeasured introduction. It's a Buzuki, a baglava, which is a baglama, which is a small model of a Buzuki and a guitar. Oui. It's for your pleasure. Accompaniment is measured and he is lying about it. So on. Well, that's good. Okay, that's the only example which is not African today, make it the exception, to confirm the rule. Alors, well, all of those we talked, I don't see anything to add here. And now I go to something else, a totally different music. You studied music on medieval music, and all of you have heard about the hoketus, which was in 12th, 13th, 14th century. One of the process of making music was a kind of game for a composer to take a melody and split it into different tones and give one of the tones to one of the instruments or one of the voices of an ensemble. Now, you must know that the hoket is a very important principle in African music, and not as a game among other procedures or techniques, but as a totally structural basis for different repertoires of music. And here you have one of them. There are 18, which I recorded, and those ensembles like this were spread about Africa, and the first testimony we have of this is on the logbook of Vasco da Gama, when he came to Cape Town, Cap Town. Non, Cape Town n'existe pas, le Cap de Nouvelle-Espérance. Cape of Good Hope, way, in South Africa, and he was received by the people at the country, and the man who wrote this book, explained exactly what they do and how they do, and the description is sufficient enough to put it in regard to what you have here, and one may think it was exactly the same principle of music, of course it was not the same pieces that they played. So, in this orchestra, each horn played one note, except the 5 highest, the shortest. The shortest make about 20 centimeters, is here. You cannot see it, so small it is. And the longest makes about 1 meter and 80. And all they do is to give single notes in a pattern which they know, and this makes the song, which you listen in a very special way. I'll come to it a little bit later. Well, here you have some, you say the big horns and the middle horns. And these horns are organized in this way. You have 4 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4. They are named by the bearers of the tradition, families. And each family has its own name in the local language. Each family is different from another family by the register. You see that you have always 5 notes in each register. Why? Because the scale they use in this region is a pentatonic scale. Pentatonic anhemitonic without a half tone. And here you have what each instrument makes from the highest to the lowest in its family, and the name. And you see that the first horn in the first group, and the 6th, which is the first in this group, and the 11th, which is the first in this group, and the 16th is in this group, they have all the same name. And this shows you that those people who have no theory, no canonic theory of the music, have absolutely the awareness of what is an octave, or what is a pentatonic system, of a lot of things, without saying it. Because it's only when you make a very deep inquiry about it, you can discover it. And here you have one picture where I take it in the re-recording the instruments. To be able to make a transcription of this music, you have to know what everyone makes separately and how it fits with all the others. So I use the method which I described, maybe you talked about it someday, also the re-recording, which is today absolutely like from the Neolithic age when we have a multipist, small, very small material to do it in the field, but this kind of work has been in the 70s, when you needed to take to the field in Africa, the villages, tape recorders, very heavy, and multi-track recording on batteries didn't exist, and we had no electricity. So I was working with 2 tape recorders and going from one to another and coming back. It was a lot of work. And to do it a little bit faster, I recorded them in when they play separately, not 1 by 1, but 2 by 2. But when they play 2, one with another, I was able to transcribe it. When they play 6 or 5 or 6, it becomes absolutely impossible. So, and the score that comes from this transcription comes here. And here you see, this is the way the musician enters. It comes, the first horn to play is the highest one, then comes in the second, the third, the fourth, and it goes well, and all the others, that we'll hear it immediately when I give you an example. And here are the jingles who come in, and here hop, jingles, and now you have the 18 horns. So you will listen. It begins with the introduction, which is an appeal of one of the horns, the highest horn, a cluster of all the instruments, appeal again, cluster again, and then begins from the highest to the lowest. And if you listen well, you will hear each entrance, and you see what it gives. The whole thing, bon, alors, attends. Non, attends. Two, three, four. Goes Well, and all this, here you will have some, like a zoom of a camera, but a sound zoom on the 15th and 16th horn coming out from one of these loudspeakers, and on the other, the orchestra. And you will have two voices coming out and all around the other voices of the orchestra. It begins with the orchestra, and then they come in later. Here's the orchestra. You will see how the variation works. Between what they do and the whole. Now, what are they doing when playing it? Each family is a variant of the other family because the material is playing the same. As a matter of fact, with 5 instruments, you can have the piece. And if you have 6 instruments, you have the piece and an octave of the first horn. Now, each instrument has a minimal formula, which he knows. That's what's written here. And when I recorded 5 instruments to play only the minimal of what they need to be able to recognize the piece, to say, yes, that is a piece, that's what you have here. And if you want to put it on one single, comment on appelle ça le porté? System. On one system, you have it here. If I take this back and I show you where you are here, you will be able to follow it very easily. What you hear is included in this small few notes. And that is what each of the musicians has in his mind, what he has to know, pop, 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 and the second way, pa, 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 and variation of it. And that's the variations that each horn does in its own register, which is multiplied by 4 almost, because it's almost 20, there are 18, which give you this absolutely mad music, where everyone knows exactly where it is. And now, all this music, which you hear, this is, what you see here, is in every realization of any formula. And if you look here, you have the page of the score, and I circled the notes of this matrix in any voice. You see? And you can see that they are everywhere. And to go back here. Now, all this is an orchestration of what at the origin is a song. And this song may be sung without any accompaniment. And that's what we will hear. Why did I record it? Because when they said, Roger Balendro, we play it on the horns. But I said, but what is behind it? It's a song. How the song is called? Roger Balendro. That means exactly the same. Can you sing it to me? So I want to see what, if I can recognize something when they sing and when they play. And I got this. Ah oui, je passe là. Ah non, il faut que je passe là. Non, il faut que je passe. Oui, il faut que je... Non, non. Ah, well, this is the model if you want to hear it. Je l'ai fait passer, non? Ah, voilà. Here is the model. Four now. That's what a musician has in his mind, one of those, but they are very good musicians, and all of them. And when he plays, he realizes it in 100 of ways, like this. Or for this part, this is the fourth part, that is the fifth part. You see variations here, here, you see here, it's not the same, not the same, slightly different here. That is if you take the horns 2 by 2, what I did, when we listen, you will get this kind of combination. And you see the number of variations are growing and growing and growing. When you combine them 3 by 3, you will have this, different kinds of figures like this. And 4 by 4, or 5 by 5, here you have the whole family. And here you have the key phrases of the song which engendered this instrumental music, and I show here with the arrow how it works according to the model of the piece.
They're hearing in Hoketus.
Hmm?
They are hearing in Hoketus.
And they are hearing in diagonal, they are hearing this phrase, or this phrase, or this phrase, doesn't change. Any phrase you can hear at any moment. You can choose what you want to hear once you know the song. Now let's listen to the song. That is a choir, it's the choir. I mean, the same musicians who played it, they just sang it because I asked them to sing it with the jingles. Phrases that you hear in the orchestra, and you can choose them out. And here you have what I asked one of the most experienced musicians, I asked him if he can sing accompanied by the orchestra, but sing the original song. And of course, he said he can, and he did it, and here it is. On the recording, you have heard before. So you see absolutely how it fits. It cuts in very small motifs.
So actually what they call the song is both the skeleton and also a real song like with words.
The song is not a skeleton. The song is the origin of what they make, from what they make the instrumentation. It's like a composer takes a vocal piece and organized for an orchestra, and they organized only in the form of orchestra. That means the whole thing is only orchestra. That's a fantastic thing. Voilà. And well, those are the key phrases of the song which you can hear into the orchestral music. Voilà. Hein? Non, si, il peut y avoir quelque chose. Ah oui, non, mais j'ai pas des... Ah, alors, je les ai, les exemples sonores, où est-ce qu'ils sont? Voilà, c'est les derniers, c'est les exemples sonores. C'est ce que la petite son. Voilà. Oui. Well, there are two examples which I have no video for, no image for. It's just to listen to, and it's to explain something else, that how the idea of matrices, what you have seen in this song, in the first song we have listened to, that always in oral traditional music, where nothing is written, the only way to transmit it is by the memory. And the memory, to transmit something in the memory, it must, at some level, be simple, because it cannot be transmitted otherwise. So, and I discovered, I was very, very astonished at the beginning, that for every piece of music, people have what I called at this time a model, and which is the skeleton, like we have seen for the horns, from which they make all the variations and realization of it. And the interesting thing is that I didn't know how to call it. And I called it, because I've seen it with the pygmies, and there was one voice which was very slow, much less sounds than in the others. It's like a cantus firmus in some way. For me it was, and I called it cantus firmus in brackets. And after this I discovered that they have a concept to design it in their language, and if one ethnic group has a concept to design a phenomena, it is probable that others have it also. So I immediately begin where I can to ask, how do you call this when you show a child how to sing a song without variation? It's very difficult because the word variation doesn't exist in African languages, so you have to make to find analogies to be understood. It's big work. And I discovered that in every language of every tribe, there is a concept to design what for us is a matrix or a model. And the Bandalinda, with the horns, they call it akode in their language. What I showed you, the small model. What means akode? Akode has two meanings. One is the male, a male, and the second is the one who engenders. Now, when you think, what is the function of the model to engender what variations? So you understand that everything is logic. In another group, where the Sansa solo came from, they call it the A of the thing. L'œil de la chose, the A of the thing. When I came to the Akapites, who have extraordinary polyphony, I have no time to you to listen to lots of people. We were lots of pieces, and we heard one piece, which was very important for me, because it allowed me to discover how the Akapit music sing in polyphony. When you go through a choir and listen, what everyone does, no two men or women or persons do the same. Everyone sings something else. Well, there are 30, there are not 70 parts, cannot be. There are 50, there are 50 parts, no. So, and I never succeeded to ask how many parts are in this song. And one day, by some miracle, my translator, because I don't speak the Aka language, made a mistake while he wanted to translate me talking in the vehicular language, which is Sango, to the Aka language, and instead of translating what I asked him, he talked to them in the vehicular language and not the vernacular. So I understood what he said. When I said him I had recorded a year before, two singers who said, this is the main melody of this song. And it was something, and I called this, of course, compositions, because it was at the bass voice, and all the other voices were lying about it. And I said, and I asked those two musicians we hear in 1 minute to sing what they did the last time about the. And he said them, instead to translate what I said, he said, tell them to sing only the mama. And I heard they said, the mama, what are they? Mother of the song. So I said, but you are talking here in Sango, that's the language I know. But in Aka, how do you say the mama of the song? You go Walengo, which is exactly this. So I said, what they sing is Ngoe Walengo. So what is what the others sing? And this thing, I think, and in 10 minutes, I discovered that all Aka polyphony is based on 4 voices. And now, what? Voilà. So you will hear this song, which was the song which allowed me to discover this, and you will hear on one track 2 men singing an ostinato, which is the skeleton, the cantus firmus, the mama, the mother of the song. Sorry. At the same occasion, you will hear what is Aka polyphony with whatever it means, basement. Here I have my period. Well, and just to end, that's my last example. I give one thing. It is also from the academics, who are my very good friends, and I'm how to say it, the admiration for what they do. You will listen to a song for adults, which is performed by children who are from 5 to 9. You will see what means contrapunct without musical notation. But, that's the period. And children learn this just by listening, trying to participate, and when they make it wrong, le falloir de no conservatoire, kind of Hochschule für Musik. They are absolutely incredible musicians. Now, if you have questions, I take them all at once, so I will try to answer them, because there is always overlapping between the question of someone and the question of someone else. It takes a lot of time. When we group them, it goes faster and speak with us. Thank you. No question.
I have a question only to the terminology of the Aka pygmies and the Bayaka, this which Louis Arno discovered. Are these related tribes of the pygmy groups?
You are talking about Bayaka of Gabon?
Of
Gabon. In which country are they?
Central Africa.
Africa is not a country.
No, South Africa.
Central African Republic.
Bayaka?
Mm-hmm. Do you know the work of Louis Arno?
Yes.
Is it the tribe from
Aka. Not
Aka?
Bayaka, Aka.
Yes, okay, no, sometimes they call him Bayaka on the
No.
recordings.
Sometimes if he calls him, he's wrong.
Yes, so that's my question. Is it the same? Is it a relative?
Yes, no. Aka is a root of a name. Mo Aka is singular of one Aka is Mo Aka.
Yeah.
All you Aka is Be Aka. Bayaka is the prefix of a group within Gabon. I don't know why he talks about Bayaka. If he talks about it, I don't know.
And the Bahaka, so this is the
Beaka.
Beaka
Yeah.
is the tribe
Yes.
of, that's the same
Yeah.
meaning,
Yes.
the same meaning. Okay.
Good.
Yes, that was my question.
The Bandalida, where are they? Because they are not Pygmies, huh?
No, they are not.
But they live next to the Pygmies.
The Bandalinda live in the savannah. The babies live in the big forest, in the equatorial forest.
The recording that we heard about the Mandalida is the one who influenced Ligeti in the ouverture of Le Grand Macabre.
He influenced someone much more. Tiens, je suis quand même curieux que les bases tombent sur des sons. Où est-ce que j'ai... Non, ça c'est autre chose. Il y a un truc que j'avais là, j'avais après dans mes trucs dans les sons de Leipzig, c'est le numéro... Non, 4, le numéro 4 dans les sons. There is one, attends, dis rien. I'll give you to listen a piece of music which was written by one of the most famous composers of 20th century. And you will tell me who he is. Next, a very short experiment. You understand why? Who?
I know, but I won't say.
Berio. Yes?
Yes.
Which work?
He's using the ostinato as well. He's using the ostinato.
It's a piece where the voices are in the middle of the orchestra.
It's choral. Well, he absolutely, he was listening to a lecture in Paris, and IRCAM, before IRCAM existed, it was the prefiguration of IRCAM. It was a small conference, and I was talking about this music, and he became crazy. I need a score of this piece. Because this piece we heard them. And because he was writing choral and he wanted this, he called it heterophony, and we disagreed about it all the time, but it's not important. And what was important that this piece gave him inspiration to add a dimension to this piece choral, which is one of the biggest pieces. So therefore I intended to give it to you immediately after the Bandalinda on orchestra, but I jumped into the example. So, voilà. Bon, ben, s'il n'y a plus de questions.
Any questions? Laurent? Thank you very much.